All lead guitar players have huge egos. They only care about playing as many notes as possible. They are never actually serving the song with what they're playing. And let's be honest, guitar solos are outdated anyways, so why even bother? Those are all the bad stereotypes about us lead guitar players I could think of right now, and I'm quite sure that there are many more. So I think it's about time to prove our worst critics wrong, and we can only do this together. Today's video might actually be the most important one on this channel yet. We will go through the 6 worst lead guitar mistakes together. And you know me by now, of course I also want to show you 6 exercise concepts that will help you with overcoming them easily, so that you will finally sound like your biggest guitar heroes. So today's first topic is all about phrasing, a topic that you guys and girls actually voted for on Patreon. Great choice. It's a term that gets thrown around quite a lot, so here's the textbook definition for you. Musical phrasing is the way a musician shapes a sequence of notes in a passage of music to allow expression. So this is all about creativity and coming up with interesting ways of phrasing your ideas as you're playing. Here's a bad example for you right away. Let's be honest, we do tend to often play scales up and down like this, when we could actually say something much more creative or meaningful with our playing. So I want to show you a really cool exercise and system that will transform your current, maybe a bit basic lick library into an extensive archive of limitless possibilities. Let's work with this ascending line in A harmonic minor. Sounds pretty boring, just a short ascending scale phrase, but what happens when we keep this simple framework in place and simply start from a different note? This is exactly the first really easy phrasing trick that you can use whenever you're not completely satisfied with your licks. Listen to how cool these variations sound when I simply start on a different note each time. The reason why this is so exciting is because you can apply this system to anything that you already learned. Just take your personal absolute favorite lick after watching this lesson until the end and try it with a different starting point. I'm pretty sure that you will be amazed with all the creative phrasing ideas that suddenly come to mind when you experiment with this. Of course, the best and easiest way of getting started with all this is downloading your tabs, guitar profiles, backing tracks and video play-alongs I made especially for you on patreon.com/BERNTH. So click the link in the description or in the first comment to get all your practice files if you're serious about playing amazing guitar solos as fast as possible and kind of sick of playing the same old boring licks over and over again. Today's workouts really help with that. Another guilty pleasure of us shredders is playing never-ending lines of 16th notes or 16th note triplets. Yes, that's a lot of fun, but it can get quite repetitive and predictable for your listeners. So the magic ingredient that makes your solos much more interesting and creative right away is actually the easiest thing you could possibly do on the guitar. You don't play at all. That's right, adding rest to your guitar solos and to your improvised takes allows them to breathe. But since I actually mentioned this for the first time a while ago, a lot of my students on Patreon sent me messages like, how do I actually know when to play and when not to play? So the one habit that you definitely need to develop to succeed with phrasing is actually hearing and also singing what you're playing inside your head. You don't even have to sing out loud, you can just imagine it. I also won't sing my phrases in this video to spare your ears. But if you manage to sing along in your head, imagining the lines that you're playing as a singer, you will suddenly place your rests much more organically because you simply won't play when you would actually take a breath. That's the big secret and revelation right here, and the main reason why these breaks are so effective. It simply reminds us of the natural flow of the voice and of literally stopping and taking a breath after singing a very long phrase. So So for this second exercise, I made a drone backing track for you on Patreon that allows you to ignore timing, rhythm and all of those factors for a while. I really just want you to focus on hearing and following your melodies as a singer in your mind, and on placing these short rests organically when you would actually take a breath. As I said, you can also sing out loud, that would be even better, but even just thinking about your playing that way does wonders for your phrasing. And when a producer or bandmate says to you, play something more melodic, it's often not even about the note choices or the scales that you're using, it's about this exact feeling of organic flow as you're playing and improvising. So since we are already deep into phrasing, let's talk a bit about string bending and vibrato. Let's be honest, these topics are quite often overlooked, especially in rock and metal. And that's a real shame, because you can shape your voice and style as a guitarist with those really expressive techniques. And by the way, nothing sounds worse on the guitar than bending to the wrong pitch. So aside from bad intonation, one very big mistake is relying on just one variation of string bending, like the whole tone bend, and completely ignoring all the other exciting possibilities, like the unison bend, the pre-bend, microtonal bends, or bends on top of bends. And there are even more exciting things you can do with string bending. So as an exercise and demonstration, here's a really cool lick that features different bending techniques. So that sounds quite interesting for a basic melody like that. I started out with a bend release approach. Then I was playing a pre-bend, so I was bending up the note before I actually played it to the right pitch. Then I played the note and then I released it. I was also using the classic whole tone and half tone bends, a classic unison bend as well, and at the end, my personal favorite, a bend on top of a bend. So with some added vibrato on top, this allows me to get a lot of expression out of my playing. And I highly suggest practicing this, because my guess is that you currently don't have string bending and vibrato in your practice routine. Make sure to leave a comment down below to tell me if I'm right about this. Another thing I highly suggest is joining our 30% elite. That's right, after all this time, still around 70% of you guys and girls are still not subscribed to this channel. That means you sadly keep missing a lot of helpful and hopefully entertaining videos every single week. And the worst part, you are actually not a real part of our guitar community here on YouTube yet. You might have actually missed the video that would have solved your personal biggest guitar frustration, and that won't happen anymore if you're finally subscribed to this channel. The next very common lead guitar mistake is about playing lines that go nowhere. Maybe you're familiar with this expression. One of our biggest goals as lead guitar players should be creating memorable licks and moments for the listener, and those melodies or repeated concepts are often called motifs. To show you that this way of thinking doesn't exclusively apply to blues and jazz, I prepared a really cool rock metal example that is based on the harmonic minor sound. So right here I was working with a rhythmic motif, and I think that becomes pretty clear as soon as you look at the transcription. I had a cool and simple phrasing idea in the first measure that I started building on in the following measures, until I found an awesome conclusion for the entire phrase at the ending of the lick. This kind of structure is very satisfying to listen to, because you feel like there's a build-up and a resolution at the end. And even if you're playing fast, technical and crazy guitar solos, those small rhythmic motifs or melodies have a greater chance of getting stuck in your listener's head than those never-ending scale runs that just go nowhere. The next mistake concerns your timing and rhythm skills. As you might know, one of the most common bad lead guitar stereotypes is that we don't have a good sense of rhythm. And there's actually some truth to that, because even if we are playing perfectly in time, we often rely on just using one note value exclusively for our long line of notes, like playing a really long scale run only using 8th notes or 16th notes or 16th note triplets. And as we discussed, this can get boring after a while. But aside from just adding rests in there, like we previously discussed, you can also really spice up your licks by often switching between different note values. This effect is really awesome. Allow me to show you a quick example. So with this example lick, I was switching between 16th notes, 8th note triplets and 16th note triplets in different ways. And although I was playing a relatively long line with predictable scale phrases, it still sounded pretty interesting and you couldn't really predict where it's going next rhythmically. So switching between different note values is not only an awesome rhythm exercise that we often work on, it's an amazing and actually quite easy phrasing trick that you should definitely use from now on. And the last mistake is all about your use of scales. I know it might look really tedious and overwhelming to study all of those different scales, but you might sound a bit basic and limited as a player if you're only working with the basics over your entire career. Aside from the very popular pentatonic scale, most players are drawn to the natural major and minor scales, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with using them. But if you also know some more exciting and exotic variations, your guitar solos will greatly benefit from your theory knowledge. I will play some lines for you now over our drone backing track. I will switch between different minor scale variations and you will hear how cool this sounds. So whenever you encounter basic power chord riffs in rock and metal, or just rhythm patterns based on the lowest available string, chances are you have a lot of harmonic freedom to experiment with all kinds of different sounds and scales. Of course, you don't always have to use every single scale that you know in one single solo. But please trust me on this, it really pays off to switch between exotic and suspenseful sounds and more basic sounds to create an exciting and really unique listening experience. So get all of your practice files for today's video on patreon.com/Bernd right now to get started with working on these 6 exciting topics that will truly change the sound of your guitar solos forever. Trust me on this, if you work on these 6 topics consistently in your guitar solo practice routine, you will finally sound like you always wanted to sound. I also have another random German word for you at the end of this video. Zeit. That means time. As always, make sure to comment that one below to confuse every single new watcher of this channel or everybody who's not watching these videos until the end. And I will hopefully see you again in the next video. Bye bye and have tons of fun practicing. Great news, my friends, I'm finally on Spotify to provide you with some awesome guitar music and shredding. You can already listen to my first full-length album, Elevation. And there's plenty more exciting music in the making for you right now. So make sure to follow me on Spotify today. The link is in the description, or you can just search for my name.